Sean Ray for Digital Muscle with four-time Mr. Olympia, Cutler, better known as A Cut Above. We're here at his home in Las Vegas on the eve of the Mr. Olympia Championships taking place this weekend in Orlando, Florida, where Jay, you had spent the better part of a decade competing in the Olympia. We were in 12 Olympia Championships?
I think I was, I don't know, I only keep track of the memorable ones, which is second.
Well,
a lot of seconds at first.
6 second place, 4 first place. That's 10 years. And then you were first Olympia, you were dead
I was,
last.
well, second to last,
So
and then I finished 8th the next year and then was second.
So that's 12 Mr. Olympia Championships, I believe it was. And you have a few Arnold Classic titles to go with that. What other titles did you win? I know you won New York.
Yeah, it was called the Night of Champions then. I've won the San Francisco Pro, the Pro Ironman.
Yeah.
A couple overseas shows.
So you had a good run, man.
Arnold Classic victories.
Did you think you were competing a lot? Were you competing often, or were you just as they came? Like Dexter Jackson competes a lot.
You know, some of those things, I mean, I only had my eyes once I qualified for the big events.
Right.
So it was always to get to the Olympian Arnold. And you remember the Weider contracts back in the day, it was exclusively you have to get to the Olympia. That was our job, right, as a contracted athlete. So every year we kind of pick and choose what we did. And as long as I qualified, I didn't really get out there and compete any more than I had to. It was about getting to the big show and then doing the promotion outside of the contest stuff.
Yeah, if my memory serves me correct, getting to the big show, you qualified for the Olympia, but you didn't go right away.
Well, I did the first year, but there's been shows that I skipped Mr. Olympia's just because I was doing other things, and you know, until I was on top and really chasing the title down from second forward, I pretty much every year I qualified, I did it.
Yeah, and you were one of the guys that wound up from Massachusetts in Venice Beach. Ed Connors helped you out with that?
Ed Connors brought me for the first time when I was around 20.
Yeah, he had a good eye for talent because, I mean, he's helped Gary Stridham. I mean, literally everyone that came from somewhere, Ed Connors somehow or another had his fingerprints on that.
Yeah, he was definitely a mentor for me. He was someone that gave me the motivation to chase it. And then eventually I left Massachusetts, moved to Orange County. I chose Orange County instead of LA. And that was a great choice for me. I was able to really capitalize after that point.
And that's where I'm from. So how did that happen? Because everyone comes and winds up in Venice Beach. What was it about Orange County versus LA?
You know, it's kind of funny. I ended up neighbors to Paul Dillette.
Yeah.
He was actually my neighbor. And I had a good friend from Boston. His name was Mike Cambra. And he actually said, hey, this is where you want to be and, you know, not get caught up in the Gold's Gym Venice. Although I liked training at Gold's Gym Venice, I felt that there was a little more tension there than I really wanted to be around. I kind of like to train in secluded places. I like to choose where people aren't necessarily at as much, and that's why I chose to go to Orange County. I trained at Lake Forest World Gym. You remember that gym?
Yeah. Later on, it was Ken Norton's World Gym.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, and I remember we got to we spent, I think it was, we might have done Thanksgiving together in '99. I think you and I got to kind of connect, and of course looking up to you all those years. I mean, I wanted to be Sean Ray. I wanted to be in California with the nice cars and living near the beach. I was always jealous. I felt that the guys in California had something more special than we did on the East Coast, trudging to the gym, changing our shoes in the snow. Yeah. You guys were out rolling on your motorcycles and convertible tops.
Yeah, I was rolling with Troy Zucalato and, you know, Tavita Aholele and Garrett Downing and all these guys that were winning the Cal. And it seemed like Flex and Chris Cormier, we all kind of started competing for who had the best car. And we were all following what was sold to us, with Arnold Schwarzenegger being on the beach, hot chicks, and just kind of living the lifestyle. But me being from Orange County, I never left. I kind of did the Gold's Gym thing. But your direction of your career, somewhere along the way, you were very strategic in not only the shows that you competed in, but choosing to stay in Orange County. Were you married your whole career as well?
I was. You know, I had my girlfriend Carrie. You know, we ended up getting married when I was 24.
High school sweetheart.
Yes. Yeah. And we, you know, we ventured out to California. You know, she was a nurse at the time, and she was working at Hoag Hospital, which we were just discussing. And you know, Orange County just fit us great, and we stayed there for a couple years. And then I had this crazy opportunity to move to Las Vegas when 9/11 hit, and chase some real estate investments, and that's kind of what led me to Las Vegas. Built my first home, and I bought like 7 properties the first year I was here, and got heavily into that and investing my money, and I kind of stayed ever since.
Yeah, Vegas has been good to a lot of bodybuilders because you came right behind me and Paul Dillette, and Craig Titus had come out here, and now we've got a ton of bodybuilders. I just mentioned we had Quincy Taylor is out here, and of course Milo Sarchev is here, Hidetada Yamagishi, Iris Kyle. It just seems like a lot of people are gravitating to Vegas. Nothing ever called you to go back home to the back east?
You know what? My whole family's there. I promote 2 events out there, so I'm there every year, and I do visit my family. My dad's 91 now, so I am going back and forth. I just never really, my roots are there, but for some reason the West Coast became home, and Vegas has just been so easy for me. I never thought I would actually stay here permanently, but with what's going on in the world today, it's just the most suitable for me. And the nice thing about my job is I'm not held to one place necessarily. I do travel extensively prior to COVID, which allows me to have a little mix-up. It's not like I can go away for the week and go to California. I can go back to Massachusetts or go anywhere that kind of I want to go and not be restricted with that.
Yeah, COVID's kind of slowed everything down and given you an opportunity to kind of pick and choose where you want to spend your time. And that being said, at some point, we're going to get beyond COVID. You got a lot of irons in the fire. I know we had you on Monday Night Muscle and we talked about your CBD business and a lot of things that you're working in, but what gets you out of bed? I know you got the 2 little dogs over here.
Yeah.
What are the dogs' names again?
This is Capone and that's Daisy.
And so you're a father to the dogs, but what moves you on a daily basis? I know you do a little bit of walking now in your training. You don't look like you lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, I'm still training. I actually just had a 53 day in a row workout. I was weight training for 53 days in a row. I was challenging myself, and then yesterday I didn't feel so good, so I was kind of laid up for a little bit. But it was my first day off. Yeah. But I still work out. I'm working, like I said, on all the different brands. I'm just a motivated person. I love the fitness lifestyle. I still eat on kind of a meal system, and I'm involved with that. So it's kind of nice to be able to have your lifestyle fit what your work is.
Right, and you're working with Trifecta.
Trifecta is I've become partnerships with them, and of course I have the supplement brand. So I'm always out there promoting. I have a club, and I do the Cutler Club, and it really keeps me motivated. So I use the people around me that are striving to get to even trying to chase what I did. Absolutely. To give me motivation to be better even at 47 years old.
Yeah, and as we start to catch up on the 50-year marker, is it everything that you thought this lifestyle would be? Because you saw what was happening in California from the East Coast, you became a West Coaster, and now you're in Vegas. What part do you like the most, and what part do you can kind of do without?
You know what, it's actually more than what I ever expected. I mean, I retired at 40, and granted I probably could have kept going if I just kind of changed my ways a little bit, but I knew that I kind of pushed a lot longer. I had planned to retire in my early 30s. I was able to be more successful into my 30s and won the Olympia, which changed my mindset a little bit. But I think for me, I retired healthy. I did have an injury towards the end of the bicep. I had that repaired. I came back and competed. As you know, I finished 6th. That was my worst showing of the Olympia in 12 years.
Your last showing.
Yes. And, that gave me a different outlook on, okay, what's the next step for me? I've always been focused on the business, so it's not like, okay, I turned off the competing to focus more on business. But I think realistically now, in today's era, we are more concerned about the health and aspect of bodybuilding and where it takes a lot of these guys. And we've seen a lot of guys come and go, unfortunately, a lot sooner than we would like. So for me, I'm just trying to be out there promoting the right way to kind of do things. And, I pushed my body to the limits. And, there were certain expectations that, I wanted to shoot for, that I was able to achieve most of those. But retiring healthy is super important for me, and promoting the healthy side of bodybuilding is now the next step, where people has this misconception that you have to damage yourself in order to be successful, but that's not the case whatsoever.
Yeah, when I came out of bodybuilding, there were only like 2 notable deaths. Muhammad bin Aziza, Andreas Munzer really stood out. But since that time, 2001, I mean, we've had some guys, Don Youngblood, Nasser El-Somebody, Art Atwood. We have so many, Mike Matarazzo, so many guys. Greg Kovacs from Canada. We can go down a laundry list of guys. Was there one that hit you harder than another? I mean, they're all tragic because they're all premature, but was there one that stood out for you in terms of your economy of bodybuilding? Because we're all connected with these athletes.
Yeah, I would say the Matarazzo, Paul DeMeo, because they're both Boston guys, and they were both like when I got into bodybuilding in 1991, like really started following the books. These guys were like namesakes in the books, pretty much. I mean, they're alongside with all you guys, and that's kind of how I learned about bodybuilding. And they're both Boston guys, and crazy genetics in certain body parts, and I followed those guys. So to see them pass early on, it was a big eye opener for me. But at the same time, it was something that it took a toll on me a little bit.
Yeah, and with COVID, we just had Tiny Lister pass away. I mean, we're having a very rough close to 2020, but nonetheless, we had Mark Wahlberg was one of our ambassadors for the Olympia last year. He's an East Coast guy. Mm-hmm. Do you have any relationship with Mark?
No, I know a lot of people that knew him, but he is someone obviously that
fan.
We kind of remember as Marky Mark. I mean, more than anything.
Yeah.
And then of course he became more of a successful actor and producer, and he does a million things now. It's supplement brand, I believe. But he's kind of been, he was kind of the guy last year. They talked about supporting the Olympia. He's always been involved in fitness.
You were the ambassador the year before.
Yeah.
Right. And this year we have Shaq. So, I mean, was that kind of an honor type to come back in that capacity?
It's always an honor when you're respected in bodybuilding the way, in that kind of regard. Because for me, I mean, a kid coming from Massachusetts and, having a dream and be able to now be a representative and be kind of the namesake held over the contest that I respected so much, because Joe Weider was everything. I mean, he was a huge mentor to me. He gave me my first opportunity. We were all Weider athletes, and I think now that Olympia kind of has lost that respect towards Joe Weider a little bit. I think that they forget this is Joe Weider's. This is how he started. I mean, this gave us the platform, and every year we should be respecting Joe Weider to the highest regard, because
it's the Joe Weider 56 Mr. Olympia weekend, so we can't lose sight of that. Did you know his brother Ben very well?
Yes, yeah.
So these are two guys that came out and created this opportunity not only for Arnold, but when you hear the names Lou Ferrigno and Sergio Oliva and Larry Scott, now obviously your name is forever etched in the annals of bodybuilding. You actually had your fingerprints on Phil Heath before he became the Gift. Mm-hmm. And so what was that like, now knowing what his body of work looks like? You knew him before he was the Gift.
Yeah, I mean, I remember calling Chris Aceto and telling him, hey, I just found the next Mr. Olympia, before he became anything. And Chris is like, nah, I don't think so. And I knew he was going to be great. And he stayed here. I mean, we trained together. And, I mentored a little bit. He got to live around my lifestyle a little bit, to see what I did on a daily basis as like a business guy, and speak to people and how I interacted with the fans. Yeah. I didn't teach him anything about his training, because we train totally different. His nutrition is different. He worked under Hani for a long time, since day one. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty cool to be able to see the early prospect and what he was. He won your show, was the first show he ever won in Denver. And for me, that's just to be a part of history. So when he did take the title from me in 2011, it was kind of like, I was able to give it to someone I respected very much. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. When you lose, it's sometimes it's really disappointing for people, but it was almost a victory in my sense, because he was alongside with me for the ride. And
now he's where you left off. He's now trying to come back and recapture that old glory. And the question is, a lot of people said, like, what are the odds? You sound very convinced that this is his contest to lose, not Brandon Curry's to defend. I
think so. I mean, the guy won it 7 years in a row. His worst was still better than everyone's best, right? We've seen him compete against Kai Green, who was a phenomenal athlete. He's held off, the likes of Big Ramis and Dexter Jacksons, and I mean, even Brandon Curry, was fifth the last time he competed. Unfortunately, he can't have the showdown with Sean Roden, which I would have loved to see that, because it's kind of redemption. But I still think Phil Heath, if you really look at the physique and the density and the conditioning and the overlay of the muscle, there's just so many factors to his success. I find it hard to believe that he can't come and win number 8.
Well, it's going to be an interesting run-up to the Mr. Olympia weekend this Saturday. As a matter of fact, it starts on Friday, where the prejudging will take place, and it concludes on Saturday. And they call Phil Mr. Saturday Night, so we're going to get a good glimpse at him on Friday. But that being said, how impressionable is it for people that come into the sport, Jay? Like when you said you used to look in the magazines and kind of see that lifestyle and you wanted it, then you created it and you lived it. And it seems like you might have done that for Phil. He got a small sniff of what success was like. He dove in and he became the very thing that you were actually living. So if someone else was coming in now, what advice would you have for them? Because not everyone's going to get to meet a Mr. Olympia on their way up.
Yeah, I mean, you have to create your own path. I mean, everyone's going to have different variables that kind of, we all go through good and bad. It's not always the greatest things that sometimes the magazines or social media seem to portray. But I think, you know, you have to, number one, have the right genetics. You have to have the mindset, the work ethic. And when everyone thinks you're not working, that's when you should be putting in the most work. And I think finding that balance and be able to create that persona, I mean, in today's era, I think it helps to be a little more vocal. But the work ethic is really where it comes down to. I always say, you know, it's more mental than physical, right?
Yeah.
So anyone can achieve success. It's just you got to work your way up in levels. As we saw with Phil, he chose not to do Olympia when he qualified. I mean, he won a lot of pro shows before he decided to finally enter. He got third in his first outing. My success wasn't as easy. I mean, coming from second to last, moving my way up, I mean, it was a little more difficult, of course, losing the title, winning it back. We'll see if he can do that. I mean, that really is going to show how much mental attitude he has to be able to come back after losing, being defeated, and being scolded for certain body parts that might not be up to par, and see if he can overcome that with a better package.
Well, I think the landscape's changed a lot in terms of when we were coming up, we had a few hand ups, like you had Ed Connors, right? And you had the ability to meet the guys in the magazines by way of Gold's Gym in Orange County and the bodybuilding shows. If an athlete's coming up now, they don't necessarily have those vehicles. So what advice would you have for them to be able to get work? Most athletes want to be sponsored, they want to be recognized, they want to have a huge YouTube channel, they want to have their own podcast. I mean, how do they go about that? Do you think the easiest way is winning titles, or is it something where they have to copy what's already out there, or just be original?
I think be original, but you, number one, always lock in your name for your website, your YouTube channels, get your social media channel, get all social media channel facets out there under control, so you can basically have that in your pipeline. Listen, your videos you put on YouTube might have 3 views at this point, but eventually if you hit it right, you can have, you know, 3,000 views or more. So for me, I always suggest to people, you know, try to do some collabs. You know, number one, if you're in the competition mode, definitely get on the stage, compete, try to win the bigger shows. I mean, for example, when I started competing in Massachusetts, I wasn't going to get the publicity competing in Massachusetts, so I flew out to California to compete in the Tournament of Champions, knowing that it was closer to the books, knowing that it's more publicity shows. So, I mean, I have the Jay Cutler Classics, you have the Sean Ray, that you get a little more publicity out of those kind of contests. So I encourage people to go to the shows that have the higher visibility, get on the platforms that you can have better visibility, and of course, winning titles always helps. But at the same time, you can continue to build a name by putting out your content, not being as shy on camera. I was an introvert when I started, and I had to learn to open up, and that's really the key.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the best advice, because listen, people aren't going to come knock on your door. You want it, you got to go out and get it. And you also have to do it when people are not looking. That's one of the things I heard you say is like, you got to constantly stay on the grind, and where you're at's not going to be where you're going to stay. And also having good role models and mentors to kind of look up to is a definite plus. And who would you credit, or who do you have to credit for part of your success in your career? Because it seems like it takes a village these days, and a lot of people don't get the credit they deserve.
Listen, there was so many people. I mean, I had training partners, you know, my ex-wife, who, you know, she was there for the ride. I mean, there was always the encouragement. You know, Chris Aceto, he worked with me since I was a teenager. You know, early on, that really helped me a lot, give me encouragement. All the sponsors over the year, I mean, Joe Weider I mentioned, who was a huge mentor. You know, all the big sponsors like Muscle Tech over the years, and then, you know, eventually now it's like all my friends and family and everyone in the media. You know, social media drives me to continue to be better. I'm not looking at today as any different from when I was winning Mr. Olympia titles. I still look every day when I wake up, I look for motivation, I look for the comments, and I look for you know, people's insight on the content that I put out, or what I can do at these trade events where, you know, I'm meeting the fans and I'm listening to people that have weight challenges, that followed something that I've done, 20 years ago.
Right.
People look at the quad stomp photo and say, man, that's my inspiration.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
And I still say, how did I ever look like that? So for me, I'm always looking for motivation. And, I can't thank the fans enough, because without the fans, we couldn't do all this.
Yeah, I asked Quincy Taylor in his Where Are They Now series, what does bodybuilding need? Like, if you're on the outside looking in, you're not on the stage anymore, and you're watching it, and you're saying, if we could only give the sport this, what would Jay Cutler give to make it better than what it actually is?
You know what? It's just, we need a platform of visibility. I mean, everyone needs somewhere to speak, and we need to encourage people to, kind of tell their story, because there's always someone out there that can connect to any person, and any individual has some importance to everyone. We all have, even on a smaller level, like, people are inspired by others. So people get on there, tell those stories, but I'd like to see bodybuilding. I mean, I would love to see more financial support come in, meaning like sponsorships. That's kind of dissipated at this point. People are kind of finding their own way. Mm-hmm. But it'd be kind of nice, like, I always talk about, Sean, when we were competing under the Weider contracts, we were paid basically to represent the Mr. Olympia at the end of the year. Right. Now we don't have that. So the athletes are fighting, trying to find a way in order to qualify and get ready for that show. Sometimes financially, it was a financial burden to do that, hoping that they win some prize money. I mean, that seems to be the only real success now at these contests, where I'd love to be able to have, more support, since a lot of these sponsors have subsided, have some support inside the organization that would give the athletes some financial support.
Well, that could be exactly where we're headed. We've got a new owner of the Olympia, Jake Wood, and we're taking opinions and suggestions very seriously at the Olympia headquarters, and maybe we could make that happen. I personally would say I'd love more television visibility. I love the World Wide Web because the world can watch us, but being on TV is like being on the cover of a magazine. So I'd love to see something happen in the television world, whether it's a workout show or a contest type situation where we're beaming into all the the families' homes, right? Like, I think that gives us some validation. Hell, they're including in the Olympic Games now, Jay, breakdancing. They have surfing in the Olympic Games. So I don't think it's that far-fetched that we should be on national television.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you talked about something really that I've pinpointed through my whole career, and I've learned this actually from your early videos, is you let people inside your life, and then people realize, wow, we have something in common, because we all surround ourselves with family, friends in our living atmosphere, and anyone is capable of doing this bodybuilding, fitness, lifestyle thing that really, to strive to have a great body. But it works in the kitchen, it works around family time, whether you're sitting and reading a book or watching TV at night, or finding time between your work schedule or school to go to the gym. We all have to get inside people's lives, and I think that is the biggest asset I can give people in order to showcase what you have, is to let people inside your life. And that's why it's just, it's my pleasure to be able to have this interview in my home, because you can see, okay, this is how someone lives. And that's always been the case for my DVDs, my social media. I let people inside my life, and I think that's why the fan following has continued.
Yeah, I gotta say on record that I don't think I would have chose bodybuilding if John Brown hadn't opened his front door, let me watch him conduct the business of bodybuilding, look at the magazines, visually see and touch the trophies that he had earned over in Europe and the various places, and then hear him speak in German to the people in Europe about how to, orchestrate a guest posing and all the things that come with bodybuilding. If I didn't get that glimpse, I don't know that I would have become Sean Ray. Very similar to what I think Phil Heath experienced with you. Mm-hmm. So I think it is important to see the other side of success. So that's a huge motivational tool for a lot of athletes that I think we as celebrities, pseudo bodybuilders, we never forget. We never forget where we come from. So with that being said, Jay, where do you go in 2021? We need to hear some New Year's resolutions.
Well, I'm starting actually January with a challenge with like a group of people doing a 6-week challenge, because listen, we know that 12 weeks is hard for people to do, so I figured I'd shorten up. I'm going to do a little challenge, try to get people in shape. So that's how I'm kicking off kind of the start of my new year. But more importantly, I'm just trying to get back to normalcy of, a travel schedule, which I fear is going to be towards the mid of 2021. So it's just all business. I mean, I'm working the supplements, and and you know, all the business that I have going on, that's pretty much, and having as much FaceTime with the fans through social media as much as possible. Still working on the YouTube channel. You know, the main thing is being at this Olympia this weekend and really just trying to support those people and show that I am here. I'm still supportive, and let's look forward to 21.
Absolutely. 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler will see you live and in action on the pay-per-view at the Mr. Olympia, Joe Weider Mr. Olympia, for the 56th anniversary there at the Orange County Convention Center. For Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, I'm Sean Ray, digitalmuscle.com.